The one that
Picture of my favorite stoplight.
Which one is that one?
See that one?
I love those stoplights. Those are cool.
That's an amazing stoplight. It looks like a heavy piece of metal. to me.
It does.
It might be.
Okay, and then it's really
Oh, yeah.
nice, isn't it?
Yeah, we'll give everybody a chance to read the minutes.
Yeah. I don't see the minutes on here.
They're on the website.
Usually they're right.
You refresh, it might.
Oh, here we go. They're right here, the third one.
Where am I at these? Here we go.
Okay. Speaking from a guy who has no hair care products or nail products, have you heard of Holo Taco?
No.
Holo, HOLO TACO, Holo Taco. Check it out. My daughters love the stuff.
Is it nail
Oh.
polish?
It's a nail polish and like a whole nail care system. And the woman is from Canada. She has her own like YouTube channel,
Really?
Holo Taco. Check it out.
Just order it yourself? then?
Yeah, they order. I mean, every time I have a ring, somebody at my front door, every other time it's Holo Taco. I swear to God. Yeah.
Never heard of that.
Check it out.
Jeff, can you hear us okay?
Yes, loud and clear.
Yep, Jeff on. Hannah's gonna be zooming in virtually for the presentation tonight. I don't see her yet.
Where's she?
She's got a wedding that she's in New Orleans. Here
Oh,
in
she's in New Orleans right
July.
now?
So I don't know if
Lucky her.
she might not be leaving until tomorrow morning, but I was going to.
She didn't invite me.
tonight's Presentation.
Mm.
I'll make sure we're not having any. Okay, she's connecting now.
You guys have to go to the India Landmarks Conference next year, Forest Preservation Commission. It was really good.
That can't be good, you said?
I went to the camp. It was excellent. In fact, they're supposed to be sending me all the pods so I can send them out to all the members. Yeah, it was really good. I enjoyed it.
Anna, can you hear us okay?
Sure can.
Awesome. So has everybody had a chance to review the minutes?
Yep.
Everybody? Okay, well, I should call the meeting to order. Roll call.
Ted Julian.
Greg Campbell.
George Harris.
Sandy Butler.
Bob Post.
All right. So now we need to have a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second it.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? All right, we're good. All right, so old business. Hannah, do we have anything at all?
No.
No.
I'm not hearing
No,
it.
no, we don't.
Okay, cool. So new business, which this is kind of exciting. This is the glass shop. So what do you got?
Yeah, so John Oliver is in the process of purchasing this building. And he can't be here tonight, but he wanted to run by you guys if you had any ideas. And we can, put those in the minutes or just kind of keep a tally of what might be a good idea to do to the facade. I know that we've gathered some historic photos, which if Denise, if you go to that presentation, it's like the third slide down. We don't really have any really good pictures of it, but we do have some stuff. But if I just kind of wanted to plant this seed, and maybe you can send me an email, or if you think of some stuff of what materials might look good or what some good ideas might be, and I can give them to John. Initially, what he's looking to do is to remove the existing mansard roof, wood siding, and the drive-through structure. Now, he does have to go through a COA, so he wouldn't be doing this until at least next month. At that point, I would imagine, because he didn't tell me, but I would imagine he would have some materials that he would look to replace those items with, not specifically the drive-through, but the roof and the siding. He hasn't alluded to what materials those might be. He also hasn't told me what he plans on putting in there as far as the business that's going to go in there. So this is just kind of some brainstorming, or if anyone does know of any other sources that would have some clearer pictures. I know that one of them kind of shows, it's the oldest picture, it looks like. There's like a Coca-Cola sign hanging next to it that looks like it might have some original storefront window type, kind of like a lot of our other buildings do, which would probably be the most ideal. I would think. I don't know when those windows were put in the front and the other kind of completely window and or glass facade was removed or covered up. But I think that would probably be a really cool way to take it back somewhat. And then also removing the mansard roof. You can also see in those much older pictures that is not there. It looks just like a regular old flat top roof. It might have a little bit of a hip in the front, or a face in the front, and then the roof kind of comes down a foot or two. Again, a lot of our buildings do that. So I think he's just looking for, what do you think would look good here? So that's where we're at with it. Like I said, we can brainstorm now. We can, if you have, some renderings, materials, ideas, anything like that, you are welcome to send it my way. I would love to see it. But with what he's done with his other buildings, I have no doubt that this will look really, really cool. He's looking to just do minor exterior to start, which would be like removing the roof and the wood siding. But then eventually he does want to do a lot of exterior work to kind of bring it back to a more, or, even make his own historical looking type of structure. There is a lot of interior work that needs to be rehabbed in the building. So basic maintenance kind of things on the exterior aren't going to take the front seat. He's got to get the inside redone nicely so that he can have a tenant in there, and then he can focus more on the outside. And I told him, I hope by then we can have another round of those MSRP grants and he can do some historic facade work, or something along those lines. Maybe I can find another grant he might qualify for. But that's just kind of where we are with that right now. So I'm pretty stoked about it.
I have a lot of questions. So
okay, I will try my best to answer.
okay, does anybody know what that name is? It says, I think it just says, it say grocery and meats. I don't know what that says, but there's a name there.
Mm-hmm.
If that was a family business, that the people who owned it might still be in Pendleton, they might have some other photos.
Is that the old one where the Coca-Cola sign is next to it?
Yeah. I just
Okay.
wondered maybe anybody knows what that family was, or because it looks like it was a family-owned business anyway.
Yeah, that would be a great idea.
I have no idea what that name is. It kind of looks like Linden's, or I can't really tell what it is.
Yeah, I can't tell either.
Well, maybe it requires some research, I guess.
Yeah,
The other thing too, that I had a question about, has he looked at all underneath that mansard roof to see what's under, or? Is
I would imagine he has looked somewhat if he has plans to remove it. It looks like in that oldest photo there that that mansard roof was put on much later. So I don't know what kind of shape it's in under there, but there's definitely probably some of the building left under it that's probably intact that might kind of look like that, and it was just covered up with shingles on the roof. So
Oh, yeah,
I am
yeah.
not sure.
I know you'll have
I'm thinking
questions.
brick would be neat if that's brick underneath it.
There's no brick. This is a wood frame structure.
Mhm.
And the attic between that and the wine stable is continuous. It's one large attic,
Okay.
one building.
Oh, wow.
If you look at this oldest photograph,
Mhm.
the front facade appears to be continuous
Mhm.
at the very top.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
the windows where the wine stable is are pretty much still intact. It's a little hard to tell exactly in this photograph. This is the photograph with the great stoplight. It's hard to tell exactly what's going on, but I think if you go back to the roof line in this early photo, that would be desirable.
yeah, I agree. And I think that's what he wants to do, is to remove that. And because I sent him these pictures. He looked on Pendleton, he put out a request on Pendleton Chatter even to see if people had old photos, and he didn't have much luck. So he's got this available, and I think that's kind of what he's going for, is the more original historic kind of look of it, which would be just that flat top, no roof, mansard roof or anything.
Well,
But the one picture, the blue picture of Donnie's place looks like looks like it's brick. So if it's a continuous building, because it's got a wood
Oh, I see.
attachment to hold the sign.
Mhm.
It looks like it didn't even have windows at that point. It had siding over the top of it, or I don't know what that is.
Exciting.
Yeah.
You know, I bet that there's brick under there. It might, I mean, there might have been some wood that they put over when it was the dry cleaners if they went up that far, but it could just be the original brickwork underneath it. I'd be really interested to find out.
I mean, Bob, I mean, when they were doing stuff like
there
this
is
back in the 70s,
absolutely no brick in that building.
I don't think
Oh, okay.
but Bob, when they were doing this stuff, when they were putting those mansard type, awnings on there, did they just cover up stuff, or did they take the time to take anything off? I would think they would just cover it up.
Most contractors do the fastest they can, and
Yeah.
so they just cover it up.
Mm-hmm.
There was an automobile accident one time when somebody left Donnie's and they were parked on the east side. And here it says Pension Pharmacy on this shot. And they ran into the building, and so I had to go in and straighten out the stud wall at east side
Okay.
and just kind of pull it back in place and do some repairs there.
So Bob, what is that old photo there with the Coca-Cola sign? What is it made of there, since it's a continuous kind of roof line? Is it just wood, or is it stucco, or I can't really tell, but.
There's another photo someplace that Dick Godby had. And he put cement siding across the top up there,
Okay.
or siding, and that's to match the earliest photo that showed that lap siding. Now, this photo where the Coca-Cola sign is, there may be metal on there, because that was what was on there when Dick started doing some remodeling there, and he tore it off. And I talked to him about that, and then he showed me that it was lap siding underneath that metal.
Okay.
Lap siding would be, it's on the front of the wine stable now, is pretty accurate.
Okay. Gotcha. That's good to know. Yeah, I'll definitely see what he says as far as what he would want to either replace or, do with whatever condition might be underneath the mansard roof there. He, like I said, he hasn't alluded to what he wants to put back up. Just that he wants to remove it, and then also the drive-through part on the side, which I imagine would just be the overhang there. It wouldn't be that whole back chunk of the building. Probably to make way for more parking, if I had to guess. But again, pretty early in it. He's just kind of looking for brainstorming ideas, but these are all really good suggestions to look into.
Well, that has an unusual roof on all of it in that it looks like aluminum foil. And that's the only roof I've seen, and I'm sure that was put on when it was Pendleton Pharmacy.
Mm-hmm.
Held up extremely well on the pitched parts toward the front of the building. And then it's seen its use on the part where it's flat in the back.
Gotcha. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see when he gets working in there. I might pop in while he's doing that just to see what's in there myself. But yeah, so any spitball ideas anyone has, or if you think of anything, shoot me an email, shoot me a text, and I will relay that to Mr. Oliver, and I'll make sure that he comes to the November meeting with maybe a little bit more ideas than just what he wants to remove, maybe kind of what his future plans might look like, maybe some concepts, maybe some renderings or some materials that he might want to end up using. So
In that oldest photo, it shows the large awning out front that is in front of both spaces. It looks like it's
mhm.
for both addresses. The roof line is continuous, but there's such a large sign on the one side, I can't see what's underneath it. But this photo looks like it was taken from the top of the lodge building that Dr. Lau has now.
Mhm.
It's interesting having the tree limbs from some sick.
Yeah.
But that awning is something that showed up in another photo from a different angle. And when the facade grant was done, the other photo that they were talking about putting that awning on the front of the Copeland building, but it was not they thought it was the Copeland building that awning was on. So there's another photo involved in our facade grant someplace. That is
Gotcha.
it's from the east looking west.
There we go. All righty. So any other comments on this before I move on to our next item? We're good. All right. So I have finished an initial draft of the, if you want to scroll the next slide, Denise, of the design guidelines for downtown business. It's in pretty good shape. Honestly, it just kind of needed a little bit of updating. Used our branding book and all of that, put a table of contents and whatnot in there. And eventually it'll be an interactive document where you can, click and go to a certain chapter or certain page and whatnot. There are a few things that I noticed that I would like your input on. Again, it's a pretty large document, so I wouldn't expect you to read through it immediately, but if you could get that by November, just like if you want a printed copy, you can redline it and give it back to me, or anything you notice, just tell me a page number, and I can kind of accumulate all of those comments, and we can talk about them at our November meeting on what we would like to see updated in there. And then I'll have a final draft for you, and I'd like to get this done by the end of the year, so we have a good solid updated design guideline for 2023 and onward. A few things I did initially notice, and I am not the historic preservation guru by any means, so there's probably a lot I'm missing if there's best practices that are new that I'm unaware of. But page 23 has some missing parts, I think, on mortar repair. It talks about brick repair, masonry, that kind of stuff. I think we should probably add a point about best practices for tuck pointing, or replacing mortar with correct materials, something that will last, and also fits the look of the building. So I am looking for some input there. We do have stucco as a recommended material. Might just be me, but I'm not a huge fan of stucco. And then a few other things that go into our contributing building. Who decides that? How do we add? How do we remove? We do have in our original structures inventory, we have quite a few buildings that have rehab guidelines that are not contributing buildings, which is fine. But I don't know if we should have those buildings be allotted as contributing. I don't know who's the body that decides that. But we also have contributing buildings that were not in our structure inventory. There was about a dozen that were missing. Some of them are in really fantastic shape. And I do think that we should have all of our contributing buildings in the inventory at least. They might not necessarily need a lot of rehabilitation guidelines or suggestions on them, but maybe just maintenance, how to keep the building in the good shape that it's in. So that was just kind of some stuff I noticed, as well as there's not really a section for best practice type signage, which our UDO, it does a pretty good job of implementing a lot of these design guidelines just in downtown business because it has its own kind of set of rules. But that was one thing that I noticed. There really wasn't any text about what's kind of good signage to have on a building. I mean, this guidelines is for recognizing and rehabbing buildings and kind of the best way to do that. But signage, I think, is a pretty important part of that because most of these buildings are going to be businesses, at least in downtown business. So that's just kind of what I have right now. So again, these are some things I'd like you to review. I'd like to give you some homework and review this and maybe come back with some ideas, and we can go forward with, voting on that, or, having another draft copy. So any comments initially on any of those things I've noticed? Is there anything you guys have noticed that you think is glaringly obviously missing from our design guidelines that needs to be there?
I think it looks pretty good.
Okay.
Pretty good.
Around page 15, there's a number of pages that have the wrong numbers on them.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
Probably pretty confusing to most of us because you start reading along, then it jumps to something else and then it jumps back. I've gone through and made notes, and I can give you a copy. I've made notes on it.
Yeah, anything like that, or if anyone wants a printed copy, I can get that for you, and you can redline it and give it back to me. However you want to do it is totally fine. But that's good, and knowing that nothing is obviously missing is good as well. So what is the process for a building to become contributing? Not sure. Okay, I will look into that then, because I also do not know.
I'd talk to the SHPO and see what she has to say. I haven't
Okay.
met. She's fairly new, and I've known the last three that are there. So
Yeah. I don't know what criterion is used for that. But I think some of these buildings that we have rehab guidelines for that are non-contributing, I mean, I would look at it and think it would indeed be a contributing building. Dr. Lau's building, the Masonic Building, is one that I was a little shocked to find that out, but maybe there's a reason why. I don't really know.
stucco.
It's the stucco, yeah.
Oh,
The stucco, all the windows have been downsized.
okay, gotcha. So it doesn't go on its original fabric.
It goes on
Okay.
what has been altered. So the product or the house needs to be 50 years old. Like
Okay.
we've got buildings now that have been over 50 years old, and our ranch homes now would be on the National Register.
Mhm.
So you have to look at the interior. What's that say, the interior? What's that word? Standard of interior. There's
Mhm.
guidelines. You know what I'm talking about, Hannah.
Yeah, the Secretary of the Interior guidelines.
Gotta look at that. But if the structure is over 50 years old, then it's considered historical.
Yeah.
Okay.
Best example we have is something as the Shirley Home on Broadway. That's an amazing structure. And
Mhm.
that's, it's. It's
Okay.
built to withstand tornadoes.
Yeah. There's-
Oh my goodness.
We actually have to buy that house. It's all the interior walls are concrete.
Yeah. You
Really?
can't- yeah.
Nothing you can,
Wow.
done anything with it. We're like pass.
Wow.
No, it's a great house.
It
Used to
is.
have a swimming pool, used to have bowling alley.
Yeah.
Dance hall upstairs.
Yeah, there's still.
Yeah,
I heard there was
the
a
dance-
dance hall
The
upstairs.
dance
Yeah.
pool's still there.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah. It's a
it's
great
been
big room.
butchered severely.
Yeah, it's
At least
not-
last time I was in there.
Now, that makes sense now. The upstairs is big enough for a bowling alley. You're right. Makes-
Wasn't it a skating rink too at one point up there?
Roller skate up
Yeah.
there too.
Yeah, because it's all,
Yeah,
that makes sense.
yeah, that is really cool. Yeah.
Might be an idea to get somebody from the library, or whoever does it, to go around and interview Doc Shirley. Pardon?
It's outside of it.
Oh,
Well, he would have an awful lot of stories to tell you about that.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Okay, well then I will look into contacting the SHPO representative. I think her name is Lindsay, or is that Landmarks? I get them confused. And just kind of see what we might need to do. I know that at least in the example of like Dr. Lau's building, part of his facade grant is removing some of the stucco as well as the incorrect windows. So, you know, as we get more and more facade grants, if they are reverting facades back to their original splendor, I mean, they might qualify then as being contributing, you know, obviously if they meet all the checkpoints. I know that building is older than 50 years. But yeah, if it's not qualifying right now, it could be in the future. So the other thing that I have is, and you'll see it at the structures inventory at the very back of the document, there are some contributing buildings, like I said, that were not in the inventory. So I put them in there. And I want to see, you know, what your thoughts are on offering, you know, maintenance suggestions, or if there are some contributing buildings that do need some work that just weren't listed in our inventory in the back. Those are some bullet points that I would like to get from the commission. And even if it is just maintenance, it's like how to keep this contributing building contributing. And should modifications need to happen, this is the best way to do it for those ones that were not in there. So I will look into this. As far as best practice design guidelines for signage, again, that's something where we've got some points in the UDO, and maybe just kind of reiterating that in this document might be a good idea. Or if you think it's irrelevant, I mean, we do have the UDO, that is our code, and it has to be very specific in the downtown business as opposed to a lot of our other commercial districts. But that's something I wanted to run by you guys if you had any comments on that. So anything else kind of just with that, just kind of picking y'all's brains, and this is kind of what I would like to get addressed before the next meeting.
Something you alluded to that I liked is making all buildings contributing. If we do
Mhm.
that, then we could follow through whenever there's remodeling to be done, and say there's 3 windows on one side of a building that could be restored to their original shape and size. Have
Right.
that included in a remodeling, and then they're going to do more work at another date, include another side of the building, and just
Yeah.
kind of work toward the goal that we have of having a really great downtown to some period in the history of each building. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of photographs of the buildings through the years. And so it's possible we could go through and say, well, this has been like this since 1930. Let's do this. Or
Right.
building that's been like this since 1880, and that's what we do.
Yeah.
If you give the people choices that own the buildings, that is another option.
Tammy made a comment. She was looking at the inventory and said that, and I had kind of thought of this too, but the way that it was laid out as far as in the old guidelines is putting some pictures. There's like a free white space on each page of a structure inventory in that appendix. So we could put historic photos in there that we do have of any buildings that we have that show kind of periods if we have them, you know, if we do have quite a few, or if we only have one, you know, we could say this is what it used to look like at this point in time. That way there's kind of a comparative of here's what it looks like modern or now these days, and on the left or the right, depending on how you turn the page, there's some historic photographs there. So I thought that was an excellent idea, and I will be accumulating all of, you know, any historic photos we have of our contributing, or excuse me, of our inventory. So, okie dokie. Next, if you'll scroll down, Denise, we have one sign that was COA with staff issued after our last meeting in August. This is for the beauty bar across the street next to Tyler Martin Insurance. It's just the wall sign that has two little piggybacks underneath it. I don't know what those businesses are. I think I don't know if she's hung it yet. I think they were working on replacing her door because that was part of Tyler Martin's facade grant. I don't know if that's been completed yet, but that might be a new sign that you're seeing. So that's the only one I have thus far. Now, Denise, can you go to the document in the G Drive called Rehab Guidelines and Questions? Thank you. So this is kind of what I was talking about before. That's the list of contributing structures that either were not in there or did not have rehab guidelines. So that's just, if you want to reference this while you're going through, this document is in the G Drive. And then if you scroll down a little bit, that's the list of non-contributing buildings that did have rehab guidelines. And maybe that was because, you know, if they were rehabbed, they could become contributing. Like I said, Dr. Lau's building, if the stucco and the windows and whatnot was removed, maybe it could be considered for contributing. And then just kind of some of my notes in there about how things become considered for contributing, who makes this call. But I do have two more. Do I have another one down below, Denise? Or is that just, yep, okay. So if you'll scroll back up to that first page. There, oh, nope, at the bottom, sorry. Projecting signs. So there's a few things in our UDO, same with the monument signage that I ran by you guys last month. There are a few discrepancies in our UDO for signage in downtown business. So that didn't transfer over basically from our old code. It wasn't a UDO, but it was just our old town code. One of those being that projecting signs should stay even or below the second story windowsill. As you can see there in our old code, it said pretty much that, but we do not have that language in downtown business zoning. It's missing from our new UDO. So I am going to propose that as an amendment, if that's okay with you guys, at our November Planning Commission meeting, just for downtown business. I don't think projecting signage is allowed in any of our other commercial districts from what I can remember, but they're mostly just used downtown here. So any questions on that one?
Good idea.
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. Another thing that was in our old UDO, it did transfer over to our new one, but it is not very clear or defined, is disallowing internally illuminated signage in downtown business. We do allow, as a whole, in all of our commercial districts in our new UDO, we do allow internally illuminated signs. However, they should be composed, like it says here, of individual letters or shapes or light lettering, symbols, etc., on a dark background. I know that ultimately HPC has the authority, at least in downtown, to say whether or not signage can or cannot be internally illuminated. I think this works in other places, like our other commercial zones that are not downtown. So I would like to also add that, just as kind of like an asterisk that, or something in our signage section for downtown business that says historic, like that is not allowed, because I know you guys have never approved a sign for internally illuminated lighting on a sign. So I just want to make it glaringly obvious. Unless there, you know, is a circumstance where I can't think of any that we have down here that are illuminated. Everything is ground lit as far as I can tell.
Background.
Okay, so is it all right if I propose that amendment as well?
But Hannah, maybe we should check, and you probably have already done this, but from a historical standpoint, when the first owners of Yummerful's moved in, they had an exterior lit sign. And they put it up, and they didn't realize that they couldn't do that. They came before us. We said, you can't do that, which angered them severely. But we did say, if you want to put it up on the inside of your building, that's fine. The outside has to be a standard sign sticking out from the building.
Yeah.
Which we did. So we approved that they could have that lit sign inside their building.
That was when they put it inside the window, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay.
There now, isn't there one in there?
I don't
think
know
there's- I don't
to
think
be
they have one
sure, but
anymore.
it was there for a very long time. And even when they sold it to the next people, they kept it.
That's what I thought. It makes
So
no
Right.
sense.
we did approve that.
Okay. I mean, if you want, this could be specifically for exterior signage. Or, you know, I mean, signage, if I'm not comfortable authorizing it, and if it is something that is, you know, a little, you know, out of my league, so to speak, then, you know, it typically does come before HPC, and you can make those conditions that, you know, you can't have it on the outside, but you're welcome to do it on the inside, which is the rule of thumb anyway, that, you know, HPC has the authority over, you know, any and all exterior type of changes to buildings in downtown business. So I can, if, you know, put in there, you know, it is in there that HPC is the ruling authority on that. I just didn't know if that extra language about internally illuminated, maybe we just say exterior, you know, is prohibited.
I would agree with that, because I think it's a little outside of our domain to say what they can do inside their buildings.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. And typically, as well, I can't say I've seen a lot of signs for, or permits or anything like that for anything interior, but that's not to say, you know, something like that couldn't happen again, but I can definitely write the amendment in a way where it's just for exterior, you know, for illumination on the outside of the building.
I think that's a good way to go.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep, I can update that. And then the last one I kind of wanted to run by you guys for your thoughts, if you'll scroll down, please, Denise. Is our post signage. So post signage is like like what Jeff Graham has on in front of his office. Dr. Lau's dentistry building has one as well. It's two poles or posts that have, you know, a placard of some sort in the middle with the name of the business on it. So we allow these in all of our commercial districts, which includes downtown business, but there's nothing in our parameters tables that speaks to what size those have to be for all of our commercial districts. So I'm proposing to basically copy and paste from the districts that do have the parameters, which right now it's only written in the like rec and open space, agriculture type of things. And it's limited to 5 feet tall, no more than 16 square feet message area. It does require landscaping, 24 inches from the ground to the bottom of the sign. So that's something else where, you know, I'm going to propose this in our other commercial zones, but for downtown business, I wanted to run this by you, that what I am proposing for standards for all tables is going to be pretty much, it's going to be the same thing, except in downtown business, we don't require signs of any sort to be 10 feet from the property line, which is the typical in all of our other zones. All of the signage we have for ground in downtown business is 2 feet from the property line, which is appropriate because, you know, there's not nearly as much room here as there is, you know, like out in general business by the high school or by the highway. So what are your thoughts on that as well?
I agree
I
completely.
think that, yeah.
Yeah, so do I.
Yeah. So it's kind of weird how it's written. It says, you know, each lot is limited to 1 ground sign, whether post, swing, or monument, but there's no language that says exactly how big those can be except in one zone. So I'm voting, or I'm amending all zones that need it, that allow those, but specifically downtown, I just wanted to make sure that was okay. And the 2 foot property line is the only thing that's changing for downtown. So.
Agreed.
That's good.
Hannah, is this essentially the same thing we were working on with Dan Maddox with the new bank going in over at the depot shops?
No, that I know the last thing I had circulated to you guys was for monument signage, which is, you know, the solid, where it's got the base on the ground. It's typically made of brick or stone. So, I mean, he will eventually likely replace the old depot shoppy sign he has there with a new one. I imagine he's not just going to switch out the face plates and leave it as it is. It'll probably stay location wise where it is, but that is a multi-tenant building. The PNC building is a multi-tenant building, as well as the lumber yard, where if they ever wanted to utilize their ground sign allowance, which they do have the right to do, having that larger allowance for multi-tenant buildings would be best. Eventually, if we find that, you know, these post signs, at least for downtown, where there typically are more multi-tenant buildings, if we do need to up the size of the post sign, we can look at that. But I know that typically the monument sign is more preferred. It's a little bit more solid. It looks like it fits down here a little more than post signs do. Not trying to make fun of your sign, Jeff Graham, but you know, it's I think we would probably want to maybe steer people a little more towards the monument, but this is a pretty standard size for a post sign anyway. So
Good deal. Thank you.
Great.
cool.
Yep.
All right. Well, that is all that I have. Denise, do you have anything? No? Okay. Any other questions or concerns about the homework I gave you for November or anything like that?
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's all I've got. If you've got anything for me,
Anybody?
let me know.
Motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
All right.
Do you have any opposed? Okay, good.
Good job, George.
Well, I'm getting
Thank you, Anna.
It's October.
Exactly. Meeting adjourned.
Thank you.
All right. Cool.
Yeah.
I'm really anxious to see what happens to the glass shop. I want to say, I would love to see what's up.